Hello everyone and welcome to our class. This is the first lesson for the third quarter in music, and what we are going to talk about today is about the Romantic period. So for our learning competency, at the end of the lesson you will be able to describe musical elements of given Romantic period pieces. So we are going to analyze what are the different characteristics of Romantic period music, and for our objective, at the end of the lesson, we aim that you will be able to, number one, describe the music of the Romantic period in terms of the elements of music. Number two, listen attentively to the musical pieces from Romantic period in order to analyze the elements of music and participate in the online activities during the discussion. So we are going to watch some video presentations during our discussion in order for us to fully understand what romantic music is all about. The first video topic that we are going to watch is about the characteristic of romantic era music in terms of emotion and dynamic contrast. I encourage everyone to note down all the important points that will be discussed in the video because this will be centered on our activity that we are going to do later.
Music of the 19th century, a period of time also called the Romantic era, was remarkably different from the music that preceded it. The Romantic era was all about making a big splash, overwhelming audiences with intensely emotional music that included extremes of every kind, including contrasting dynamic levels. Romantic composers loved a good story. In the past, opera had been the main musical storytelling genre, but in the Romantic era, some composers wanted to communicate with their audiences on a deeper level through instrumental music, and began to focus on telling musical stories without a singer or lyrics. To successfully do this, composers needed to create highly emotional music to successfully convey the general moods and plot points of a story without having the benefit of lyrics. One way that Romantic composers created musical stories was by using flexible forms. Music of the previous century often followed strict musical rules that governed how the music should be structured. Without these restrictions, Romantic composers were able to rapidly transition between starkly contrasting melodies, as Hector Berlioz did in his Symphonie Fantastique. In the fourth movement of this work, Berlioz moves from an ominous death march to an upbeat tune that portrays the jubilant shouts of an enthusiastic crowd, to a poignantly sad melody of a lost loved one. The wide variety of contrasting emotions in a single movement would have been unheard of in a symphony that used the rigid forms of the previous century. Romantic composers were very focused on melody. Many of these melodies are so catchy that they are still popular today, such as the passionate and tear-jerking love theme from Romeo and Juliet by Tchaikovsky, the sneaky and suspenseful In the Hall of the Mountain King by Edvard Grieg, and Rossini's exuberantly jaunty William Tell Overture, to name a few. Even though they were written over 100 years ago, the emotions that these melodies portray are still universally recognized by audiences today, which is why Romantic-era music is often used in the background of films, commercials, and television shows. Romantic composers often pushed musical elements to the extreme to get the emotional impact they wanted, but one element that especially interested them was playing with the musical dynamics, or volume of the music. In music, a loud sound is indicated by the term forte, and a really loud sound is called fortissimo. A soft sound is indicated by the term piano, and a really soft sound is pianissimo. However, really loud and really soft weren't extreme enough for some Romantic composers. For example, Italian composer Giuseppe Verdi wrote a requiem mass, music for a funeral service, that rapidly moves from a whispery triple piano, or pianissimo, to a thunderously pounding quadruple forte, or fortissimo. Gustav Mahler got the dynamic contrast he wanted for his Symphony of 1000, which was originally performed with 1,030 musicians and singers. Mahler designed this massive work to make the whole universe ring, repeatedly asking the performers for even greater dynamic contrast during the intense rehearsals for this monumental piece. Romantic composers often use sudden dynamic contrast for dramatic effect. There are special music notation symbols that indicate such a rapid change in dynamic levels. The sforzando symbol tells a performer to play with great force. Forte piano means play loudly, then immediately soft. Another popular dynamic directive was subito, which means suddenly. Subito piano, for example, means that performers should get suddenly soft. The expansion of the standard orchestra during the Romantic era allowed composers to incorporate a variety of new instrumental sounds that allowed for greater emotional range and greater dynamic contrast. Relatively soft instruments like the pedal harp and the celesta, a piano-like instrument with metal chimes instead of strings, contrasted with other new orchestral additions that were relatively loud, like the tuba, a deep and powerful brass instrument, and the piercing little piccolo, a smaller and higher version of the flute.
So there you go, and I hope that you have catch some important points in the video presentation about the characteristic of romantic period in terms of emotion and dynamic contrast. So this lesson gives us a brief snapshot of two popular romantic era trends, which is highly emotional music and dynamic contrast. So diba doon sa video, diniscuss doon what is the meaning of emotionalism in terms of music, because during the romantic period, composers are really intensely emotional in terms of expressing themselves through music. And then another one is the introduction of different flexible forms, wherein we could hear it through some of the compositions like the Symphony Fantastic by Hector Berlioz and Romeo and Juliet by Tchaikovsky. And then another is the so-called dynamic contrast. One of the things that were being popularized during the time of Romantic period is the introduction of different dynamic markings such as fortissimo and pianissimo, which are not evident during the time of the classical era. Okay, so the next topic that we are going to watch is another characteristic of romantic music, which is all about musical nationalism. So what is musical nationalism all about? Now we are going to watch another video presentation, and here this will describe what are the events that happened during the time of romantic period that leads to musical nationalism. So again, I encourage everyone to take down notes kasi yung gagawin nating activity mamaya is related dito sa mga video presentation na pinapanood natin. Okay.
Musical nationalism is the term used to describe art music that was created with the intention to promote nationalism or help inspire patriotic sentiments. The 19th century, also known as the Romantic era, was a turbulent political time in the Western world. Much of the European continent, including Germany and parts of Eastern Europe, was under control of the Habsburg and Ottoman empires. Other modern-day countries like Italy and Germany were fragmented into a number of smaller city-states. The French and American revolutions of the previous century helped to inspire other countries to fight for their independence from foreign governments or to unify under a single national identity. Nationalism was also still prominent in the United States, a fledgling country that was struggling to find its voice while dealing with a civil war. Popular nationalist sentiments were fueled by music and the arts. Painters helped commemorate important revolutionary events and recreated symbols of national pride, while composers began seeking new ways to commemorate their heritage through music, as well as to help establish recognizable regional styles. There were three key ways that Romantic composers created nationalist music: overtly political music, patriotic music, and national music. It was 1848. Composer Robert Schumann was turning 38 years old, and his wife Clara decided to surprise him with a birthday present. At the time, Germany was divided into independent states, each ruled by a different monarch. Revolutionaries wanted these states to be united, and used the slogan Vorwärts, which means forward. The slogan came from a poem written by a German revolutionary, and Clara decided to set that poem to music and have it performed for Robert's birthday. The opening lyrics to Clara's song are, "Leave the dreaming and hesitation behind. Without fatigue, go forward." The addition of music helped the poem become an even more emotionally charged battle cry that reflected the political climate. Music has been an effective way to inspire patriotic sentiments for centuries, and another tool Romantic composers used was to breathe new life into existing patriotic songs by turning them into art music fit for the concert hall. American composer Louis Moreau Gottschalk did just that with his work, The Union, concert paraphrase on national airs. Gottschalk, a fierce supporter of the North, wrote this virtuosic work during the American Civil War. Union combines three pre-existing national tunes, the Star-Spangled Banner, Yankee Doodle, and Hail Columbia. Although Gottschalk was not the original composer of any of these songs, his skillful arrangement of them in Union earned him thunderous applause, standing ovations, and lots of street cred as a composer. Antonin Dvorak was a highly successful nationalist composer in his homeland of Bohemia. Bohemia was a region of Eastern Europe that is now part of the Czech Republic. Along with other Eastern and Southern European regions, Bohemia was an ethnically Slavic territory, and as a Slav, Dvorak decided to write music that commemorated Slavic national heritage. He composed the Slavonic Dances, a set of 16 orchestral works that take their inspiration from the ethnic music of Poland, Ukraine, Slovakia, Serbia, Croatia, and his native Bohemia. These dances were very popular and gained him a widespread reputation as a nationalist composer. This led to a job offer from the National Conservatory of Music of America, inviting Dvorak to serve as director. As an immigrant-based society without a long-standing tradition of native folk music, 19th century America wasn't sure what their national music should sound like and wanted Dvorak to help them find their voice. After spending a few months in the country, Dvorak published a series of articles stating that the foundation of an American school of music should be based on the musical traditions of Native Americans and African Americans. To help prove his point, Dvorak composed a symphony incorporating the sounds of these two traditions called From the New World, which was very well received and helped set the stage for modern American music. While these three composers typify certain aspects of 19th century nationalism, musical nationalism was a widespread trend that inspired a large number of composers throughout the Western world. Other notable nationalist composers include Friedrich Chopin from Poland, Modest Mussorgsky of Russia, Czech composer Bedřich Smetana, and Jan Sibelius from Finland.
So there you go. Did you understand what the video presentation is all about? So just to sum it up, nationalism was a popular sentiment during the Romantic era and appeared in all art forms of the day, which also includes music. Musical nationalism is a term used to describe art music that was created with intention to promote nationalism. Pag sinabi natin nationalism, it means yung pagmamahal sa sariling bayan or help inspire patriotic sentiments, or maaari din naman nakakatulong siya para mag-inspire dun sa mga tao na ma-boost yung pagmamahal nila sa sariling bayan. Iba-iba yung pamamaraan ng mga composers to express their nationalism. Yung iba sa kanila, they use their folk music para ma-express yung kanilang appreciation dun sa kasarili nilang musika. Gaya halimbawa nila Chopin, ginamit nila yung popular na folk tunes dun ng Poland para express niya yung kanyang nationalism. And then, yung iba naman, ginamit nila yung music para talagang mag-evoke ng mga emotions dun sa mga tao na nakakapakinig, na maalala nila yung kanilang mga nararanasan, mga pang-aapi mula sa mga political leaders sila during that time. So, sobrang importante nung music upang ma-promote yung nationalism ng panahon na yun, ng 19th century. Kaya isa yan talaga sa mga notable characteristic ng Romantic era. Yan. So for our activity, I want you to go to your browser and type wordart.com. Diba kanina pinag-take down notes ko kayo dun sa ginawa nating video presentation, pinanood nating video presentation. So, ang susunod na gagawin natin is go to the browser and type wordart.com, and then once na naandyan na kayo, just follow my instruction. First is click create now. Yan, and you will be prompted to another tab, which is dito na kayo magke-create ng inyong word cloud, which is yun yung gagawin natin activity. Now, I want you to type all of the words that you have note down while watching the video presentation. Yan. So, saan nyo itatype? Dito sa part na ito. Yan. So, meron siya mga default na words na nakatype dyan. All you have to do is to type all those words that you have taken down while we are watching yung video presentation kanina. So, for example, romantic music, and then what else? Just click enter, and then what else? Example is yung expression of emotions, yan, emotionalism, and so forth and so on. Yan. So, halimbawa nakapag-mention na kayo na isulat nyo na lahat ng mga words na tinake down notes ninyo, what you are going to do is to design kung anong klaseng word cloud ba yung gusto nyong labasin. So, you can choose between here kung anong shape ba yung gusto nyong maging shape ng word cloud na gagawin natin. So, for example, you want to use the shape of heart. Or sige, hana tayo na mas masaya. For example, music. You want to select music since music yung topic natin. And you chose this one. For example, this musical note. I want this musical note. And then you can also change the fonts. So, for example, I want something that is like this is male race stuff. Yan. So, this is my font. And then, layout. For example, I just want it to be auto. Yan. And then, as for the style, yan. So, bahala na kayo if you want to change the color or whatever. And then, if you want to go back to the words and just add a little more dun sa mga words na naisip nyo kanina, then you can just go back to words and type yung mga additional words that you want to include on your cloud. Okay na? So, halimbawa natapos ka na ng mga panglagay, naglagay kang composers, and then nilagay mo si Tchaikovsky, yan. And other words, once natatapos mo na yun, don't forget to click visualize. So, halimbawa, tapos na natin. Let's click visualize. So, you see that maglo-load siya to create yung ating naisip na. And then, here, ito yung ginawa natin na word cloud based dun sa mga words na binanggit ninyo. Now, this will be your output for today. So, once na nagawa nyo na to, you are going to download, click download, and then just select standard JPEG or standard PNG, whatever you prefer. So, I think I prefer PNG because PNG is larger and clearer, and it is easier to be edited. So, I'll just click standard PNG, and there. Let's just type yung file name na gusto natin ilan. So, for example, lagyan natin is word art activity. Yan. Yan. And then, just save it. And then, you will turn it in dun sa Google Classroom. Do you understand? So, don't forget to submit this output today. Again, just go to wordart.com. I will be posting yung link paano kayo makakapunta after this video presentation so that you could finish yung activity natin for today. So to sum it up, everything in the Romantic era was bigger and even more dramatic. There are many different ideologies and movements were embraced by the composers of this era, including notions of individualism, nationalism, and emotionalism, as what we have learned a while ago through the video presentations that we watched. So artists were expected to express their innermost feelings and desires through their compositions, and traditional tonal patterns and vocalist styles were modified, extended, and discarded. So many of the most beloved composers of all time lived during the time. So isa na nga dito, di ba, si Beethoven. Siya yung nag-start ng Romantic era. So in the next couple of days, we are still going to discuss or elaborate more what Romantic era is all about. And I want to thank all of you for watching this lesson. I hope that you learned something from me. Again, don't forget to submit your activity today. And if you have any question, just free to message me or just type it dun sa comment box ng ating Google post para mat-address natin kung ano man yung mga concerns ninyo. So much for that. Thank you very much again for attending our class, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.